Yeah, let's dig right into it. We starting off with some major MLB news as winter meetings are getting going in Orlando, Florida. Kyle Schwarber returns to the Philadelphia Phillies on a long-term deal, 5 years, $150 million. He had some options to go other places, but he decides to stick with the Phillies. And to me, this is interesting because, of course, getting 96 wins last year, getting to the playoffs and losing to the Dodgers, a lot of people thought that maybe they were going to blow it up and maybe do a little bit of a rebuild inside it, if you want to consider it a rebuild. But with Schwarber back, with they still having Harper, with some question marks with maybe the rotation, there's a lot of good stuff about this one. I really like bringing back Kyle Schwarber here.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely candid with our viewers, okay? I am not, as of right now, the biggest baseball watcher. All right, I will get better at this, but looking at what this deal is right now, what the situation is with these Phillies, just as a big like NFL guy, college football, maybe mixing a little basketball, like some NBA. This looks to me like the Phillies are trying to extend their championship window. Like this is the guy that they're willing to settle in with. They've seen enough. They've seen the talent, and they're like, all right, here's a ton of money. We're just going to hope that you can get it done for us. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna make you a baseball fan. Don't worry. So you get to watch the evolution of Nick becoming a baseball fan on this show. It's going to happen because we are going to have some great conversations here. But no, this is exactly true. This continues their window, and really they have a strong window with Bryce Harper still being around, with the pitching staff that they do have. Although I don't really like the back of their bullpen or back of their rotation at the moment. Taiwan Walker is on a terrible deal. We'll see what Andrew Painter can do. There's going to be a couple players right now. Obviously, there's still a couple months left before spring training. We're still in the middle of winter meetings, but right now there's a couple teams or a couple players in the Phillies that are going to potentially be starting the season with no service time. They're going to be rookies, and that's not always a terrible thing when you have that. Of course, you get to see the future in front of you, but are you happy with saying that Justin Crawford's going to be your starting center fielder for the future of 2026 and beyond? I don't know if they're ready to say that yet. Are they ready to keep around Nick Castellanos after making a huge blockbuster signing with bringing back Kyle Schwarber on a big deal? They found a way to bring him back while other teams gave him about the same contract or very close to it. The Baltimore Orioles matched this deal with Kyle Schwarber. They matched him 5 years, 150. The Cincinnati Reds gave him 5-year deal as well, but at 125. And then the Pittsburgh Pirates, of all teams, gave me a 4-year deal at 120. The Pirates never are in the news for spending money. It sounds like maybe they're going to try and surround Paul Skeens for something eventually. The Reds, what we're hearing about the Reds contract is the fact that he is a local kid. He's from Bloomington, Indiana. They wanted to get him, closer to Cincinnati. They thought he could sell tickets. That's the reason why they gave him a contract offer. Now, apparently, the Reds are not going to do anything the rest of the way. They're going to just be the Reds. So that's interesting. You'll know very soon what being the Reds means if you are just learning to be a baseball fan. But overall, he decides to stay with Phillies. He decides to extend the window of being a potential championship team. You still got to find a way to get past those Dodgers, though. Shohei Ohtani, they've been doing a lot of things. Those Dodgers are a crazy dynasty right now.
Yeah, there's not very many things that you don't or that as you're like kind of learning this baseball thing. There's a select few things you know. One, Shohei Ohtani is simply unbelievable. It's hard to imagine how good he is at basketball or at baseball, excuse me. And the Reds are the Reds. Somehow I actually do know that. So that's hilarious that the Reds are they swung, they missed, and then they said, all right, well, I'm not getting back up to the plate. Somebody else go up there. I'm done for the season. And I do have a question because baseball's pay structure is so different from anyone else with basically the ability to spend unlimited money. Is this move, this 5 for 150, was that 30 million or roughly 30 million a year? Is that like there's no like this is too expensive? There's no overpaying in baseball because they can just pay the luxury tax or whatever. Philly fans are upset that they were like stretching or reaching to keep Kyle Schwarber. I have no reference of because like when let's say for example, the Patriots spend 800 million on a player. Well, now we don't have any other money. Like this is it. Like we just spent everything we have on one player. Football is a team sport. Does baseball work kind of the same way? Is there an element of like, hey, maybe we should have held off a little bit or maybe not for a guy like Kyle Schwarber? What's the situation with the money side of this?
It's definitely different, but there's still people who complain about it. There's definitely people who are still like, this is too much money. Why are you doing this for a DH? This is why I think now the greatest DH contract of all time, at least largest wise. And then you're looking at the future, like holding on to bad contracts. The Phillies are loaded with bad contracts right now. We mentioned Taijuan Walker being one. You could make the argument that Trey Turner might be on a bad contract. You can make the argument that Nick Castellanos is on a bad contract. And then you're adding a 5-year, $150 million contract to a guy like who is a 32-year-old Kyle Schwarber. There's a good rule of thumb that goes around the world of baseball. If you look into the advanced data fields, that usually players after the age 31 season start to slow down in some of the advanced data with swing speeds, things like that. So you're signing him to a 5-year deal at age 32 when he's about to enter his 12th season. That's definitely a risk. There's no doubt about that. So, but either way,
like
he played all 162 games last year. He had his best season ever, hitting 56 home runs last year. He had 132 RBIs last year. I mean, all of those led the National League in games played, in home runs and RBIs. He's doing that as a 31, now 32-year-old DH. And the fact that he doesn't have to play the field and he's just worried about, swinging the bat and hopefully putting out 50-plus dingers for the Phillies, that's very important. But no, when it comes to the salary cap and, the lack of salary cap, luxury tax, and the money like that, obviously people pay attention to it. You don't want to be sitting in a potential spot where you're stuck at the MLB trade deadline in the middle of the season because you don't want to either surpass the luxury tax or just make it even worse for your owners. There might not be a for say salary cap, Nick, but these owners are super stingy. We just talked about the Reds. We just talked about the Pirates. They're super stingy when it comes to this. If anything, we need more of a salary floor. This isn't a Phillies problem. But we need more of a salary floor than a salary cap in baseball.
Interesting. Okay, so the Kyle Schwarber situation seems like a good signing. I could see the reality where, the 31 mark isn't as cut and dry because he's not doing both the field and the batting. Brian reminds me of, we talked about it this week, Phillip Rivers, right? 44, just turned 44, coming into bat for the Colts. We're not talking football right now, but the fact that he just said, screw it, I'll wait another 5 years to be in the Hall of Fame is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, that's how I'm looking at this as a football fan. This could be something that helps the Reds. I think they've got, or the Phillies, I think they have a guy, might as well keep him around 56 runs last year, 56 home runs. I mean, that feels like 56 points to me.
Yeah, it's even more than that because of the RBIs. I mean,
True.
132 RBIs. That's the big deal there for sure. What I see from Schwarber here is that, his 5-year deal, if he continues on the same trajectory he potentially could get his 500th career home run in a Phillies uniform. And if you're a Phillies fan, if you're somebody who has watched Schwarber for his entire career when he was on the 2016 World Series with the Cubs, watching him be what he's turned into has been really impressive. And after seeing him even win the World Series with the Cubs, after seeing him in the outfield for a couple of years at the beginning of his season, I didn't think he'd pan out. I didn't think his bat would be enough for him to be a player that stayed in the league for more than 10 years. The fact that there's a possibility that he might be a 500 home run leader by the end of his career is absolutely insane. So yeah, lots more to talk about for baseball. Don't worry, I'll get you ready, man. You have nothing to worry about when it comes to that.